Hi parents, thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for joining us. This is Yi Ting, Madam Tay from West Grove Primary School. In this morning, thank you for joining us in the Cyber Wellness Parent Webinar. We are very happy to have with us Miss Nina Boer from Cyberlite to share with us more on today's topic, raising safe digital citizens. We hope that at the end of the session, you will be equipped with practical strategies on how you can guide your children through the complexities in the digital world. Also, you will be able to learn more effectively how to use parental controls and privacy settings at home so that you'll be able to monitor your children's usage of the digital, how they are using the digital gadgets at home. At the end of the session, we have also included a question and answer segment where you can address your concerns and queries. So throughout the sharing, you can type in your queries and any questions that you have in the chat box icon under the Zoom setting so that later at the end, we will address all your queries. Our speaker today is Miss Nina, who is the co-founder of Cyberlite. She is a passionate advocate for cyber safety and digital well-being with a strong focus on education. Ms. Nina has also authored the influential book, Ready, Get Set, Connect. So without further ado, I shall hand over the time to Ms. Nina. Ms. Nina, over to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, parents, for taking the time on a Saturday morning to learn more about your cyber safety for your children. And that is really the first step. Actually, parents spend 46 minutes, the whole lifetime of their child, speaking about cyber safety. So for you to commit an hour to talk about the subject is more than the average. And that's where our worry really lies. As we talk and move into more of an AI world, our children's worlds of offline and online will be more blended together, and therefore the risk factors that they have are something that we haven't faced in the past. So our own parenting, how we were parented, all the skills that we were taught in the past probably aren't able to support them as much as they need to be supported in the future. So we need to continue to learn. We need to continue to understand what is it that we need to impart on our children before we set them off into the real world. At Cyberlite, we have worked really hard to form a framework, a curriculum that really will help you understand what your children need to know. And these are the 6 areas that I will delve into today to give you an idea of what you should be looking at when you're looking at your child's cyber safety. So they include digital identity, which is how they present themselves online, their own privacy and information and security. As you heard from your teacher there, that it's very important that we set up their controls properly and we really know what's going on. Also, we're in a world of fake news, and so media literacy is something that we'll delve into. Phishing and scams, our children are more phished and scammed than adults today. So that's really incredibly important. While your children are in primary school, and I also have 3 children, we often think that we're not going to get a stage when we need to talk about online relationships and our children speaking to people online. But unfortunately, it's happened younger than older. And if we can have the tools to navigate that, I can support you with making sure they're safe online. And the 6th part that we'll be delving into is cyberbullying and abuse. Unfortunately, Singapore has one of the highest rates of cyberbullying. So as a collective, as a community, we really need to work on how we can support our children not to be in such toxic atmospheres. There will be space for questions at the end. And what I would love you to do, because if you're anything like me, you'll have a question right now and you'll forget it. So do feel free to put it in the chat. And what we'll do is moderate those and answer them. So you can add those to the chat as you go along. And if you keep yourselves on mute. The other thing before we really get into it as well, this is a parent talk. I will be talking about the risks and the concerns. It does go to a place where children should not be listening. When it comes to cyber safety, much like other education, we have to be careful when we tell our children or expose them to knowledge. So if you do have children in the room, please can you ask them to leave? This is not for them, and some of the slides are definitely not for them to view. We do at West Grove Primary School do a lot of work with the children directly, so they will get the information for themselves for their age group. So first of all, let's talk about your cyberspace. What are we talking about when we talk about children and their cyberspace? My cyberspace and your cyberspace looks incredibly different to our children's. If you are like me, you're probably still using Facebook. I can assure you our children are not using Facebook. They find it very old and not very appealing. I use a lot of Google. I'm on Zoom all the time, WhatsApp and Gmail. That's what my cyberspace looks like. So when we're talking about your children's cyberspace, I want you to think about it like their bedrooms. Their bedroom, if you walked in and there were posters on their wall, the apps that they're using would be reflected on their cyberspace. So if you have a moment, can you grab a pen or a paper, or if you have your notes with you, and write down the 10 places your children spend most of their time online? The reason I'm asking you to do that is when I'm talking about cyber safety and risk, I want it to be highly applicable to your child and their cyberspace. Often we talk about it in a manner when we're talking about it from a 100-feet level, but I really want to talk about your child's cyberspace and how we can lock it down and keep it safe. What I tell the children when I talk about their cyberspace is that it's very personal to them. And when they're in there, they should feel comfortable and joyful. And the only way I can do that is identify where it is and then give the examples of how we put settings on there and the risks within there. So if you do that, write down the top places. If you need some support and help, or just some knowledge into where our children are, at the age group of your children, they are on Roblox, they will be on YouTube, they will sometimes be using Netflix as an entertainment resource. The gamers would have stepped somewhere into Fortnite. If you're anything like my 6-year-old, your obsession with Minecraft is real, and they'll be spending a long time on there as well. For those who also have siblings who are slightly older, you'll start to see Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok creep into your lives as well. If you want to use this as a way of keeping your cyber safety safe as well, write down the apps that you're in as well. So now as parents, you've got a guide of where your kids are sitting, what they are on. Now I want you to understand one point and one question that I will always ask. Why are your children on those apps? It's very important as parents that we understand why they are there. They will tell you it's for entertainment reasons, because they're bored, because their friends are on it. But actually, as parents, we need to think a bit wider. The reason our children are on these apps is because they have been marketed to, and they have been asked to be on those apps by the app providers. Much of the places that we're all on are similar due to the fact of marketing spend or the investors making sure our children's attention is grabbed. As soon as they are on that app, they are no longer treated as children. Unless you tell that app they are a child, they will go onto the app as a user, and then they become a data point. Once you become a data point, what the app is looking to do is to treat your child like a subscriber or someone to advertise to. They want to get your child's mind share. So they may be pushing content, concepts, or ideas they feel a child of that age or a user on their app should know about. So it's very important at this point that we both understand why our children are there and the motivation behind the app. And this will come to play when we discuss things like screen time, why are our children online so much, why are they looking at content that I'm not happy with. We need to look at from the motivation of the app provider as well. And as we think about those two things, we then need to add the added layer of what risks are on these apps. What are the children seeing while they're in these spaces? So if you've been to one of my talks before, I always show this one to give you a certain idea of what we really care about and what the stats are saying. So the risks our children are having, as you can see in the pink, is tweens. That's under the age of 13, and teens is over the age of 13. And you can see there is a predominance for them being cyberbullied, seeing violence online, having conversations about deep depression. We have a massive issue with this and social media and our girls. Sexual conduct, our children are learning more about sexual conduct online than they have in educational environments, and self-harm and suicide. So those are some of the points that I need everyone to be aware of as we delve forward into what do we do about these situations and points. As you can see from the lines, under the age of 13, the children are less risk because they're still at the age of compliance. You probably have children who still listen to you when you take the iPad away from them, or tell them they're not allowed an app, or they're not allowed to go to some point in their cyber world. When it comes to when they're teens, they will navigate themselves around that and probably end up in more risky situations, as teenagers inevitably do. And so let's start, first of all, the key conversation we need to have is about your digital identity and what you're reflecting online. So when we talk about digital identity and our children, we're talking about it in the same context as we are as adults. It applies to all the personal identifiable information that we are leaking online. When I talk about personal information, I often get the question, well, most of it's out there. Why do I have to worry about my child's PII? Why do I have to worry about their digital identity? Today, when we want to know about your child, if we are a college professor or if we're a university application advisor, if we are a scammer, if we are a bank, if we are an insurer, the first place we will do is scrape data of that individual online. And if we're leaking that data very early on, there's a lot we can find out about your children. So we want them to understand that their digital identity and footprint is really important to safeguard. So let me put that in some context back in their cyberspace. Take TikTok, for example. Children are oversharing a lot of information about themselves in the bid to become an influencer or to become famous, to share content with each other. Back to the motivation of the app wants the children to engage with each other. The more you use it, the more time you're on there. The more you do something that's over and over again, it is repetitive, it becomes a challenge, it becomes something that TikTok can sort of advertise out and promote. So that is the motivation of TikTok. Children therefore end up putting a lot of information about themselves online that can identify them, not only to the advertisers, but to bad actors who may have ill intent around your child. Now with TikTok, it's slightly simpler. If your child does use TikTok, and in Singapore, we advise that you don't use TikTok till over the age of 13. I know when we go into classrooms, this is not actually what is happening. A lot of children are on it earlier. You can do a lot as a parent. You can actually download a parent app that will give you a sort of visual of what your child is up to, what they are viewing on the TikTok channel. You can also tell TikTok how old your child is. So if you set up their settings effectively, your TikTok will treat them as a child and will only give them content that's advisable for that age. And they also won't let adults see the content that your child is posting. However, it's incredibly important that we also talk to our children about oversharing in the comment section, as often what they will say will lead them to footprints back to them as well. So environments like TikTok, what you need to do is make sure that you have your settings put up correctly and that your children realize that when they're sharing things on there, they're sharing it to a wider world. What I normally talk to them about is back to their cyberspace. When you are in your bedroom, who do you allow into your room? In the real world, there are very few people who are allowed into your personal space like that. But often when we give our children a device or a tablet, we don't set up the same safeguards, and they may have a lot of followers or strangers who can communicate to them in a very, very comfortable space. It's a one-on-one conversation your children can have with these people. So do ensure that you go off and you set up your settings correctly. The other things that children share about their PII, their personal information, without really thinking about it, is their location sharing. And parents, we all do this. Every time we download an app, it will ask us, can I have access to your photos? Can I have access to your location? And we just tick yes, yes. We are very good at doing yes straight away. But this is where we now need our children to have some real critical thinking skills, especially with the age of AI, where it can be replicated to where they are or duplicated or followed. We need them to realize that's the personal information you should not readily be leaking. Now, with apps like Snap, where a lot of our children as young as 9-year-olds are using this, they are pushed to put on their Snap map. As I tell kids all the time, Why do you need to follow your friends continuously? We often know where they are 99% of the home. They're either at home, in an enrichment center, or at school. So you don't need to be using that map. That map is being used because the technology or the app itself is motivated to get that data. So get your children to think through, who are we sharing our location with? Google Maps, good idea, share your location. If you want Grab Food to come and give you food, share your location. Otherwise, go to your settings, and with the apps in their cyberspace, if they don't need to share their location and it doesn't affect the quality of usage, then shut it down. No one should have your location without your own personal need to be giving it away. The other issue we have with children in their personal space and their digital identity is who they're communicating with. Roblox is a very complex game. We have a lot of issues when we're talking about it due to the fact its popularity is really high. 3 out of 4 children across the globe are using Roblox by the age of 12. So that is huge. There's no fighting the fact that children are on this. However, let me explain to you slightly what Roblox is and how it works. Roblox is like your Google Play or your Apple Store. It is a platform where developers can come and put their product on. And I have garnered an audience as Roblox that you can utilize. So that means me as a developer, I can create a game and hope that all children use it. But so can a bad actor or somebody who's ill motivated. And what we find is we've seen many games created to groom children, to teach them fanatical thought, or to put them in a situation which is inappropriate for children. Roblox themselves' answer to this is to try and push the age of the user up. And unfortunately, you can see from how they're doing worldwide, this isn't working for them. So our children are still on the platform, and there's still lack of safety controls on Roblox. What I advise all parents to do is to go into the settings in Roblox and shut down the ability to chat. I say this because in the cyber world, we also call Roblox the pedophile's playground, due to the fact 1 in 10 people on your children's chat will have bad motivation. So we need to make sure that they aren't talking to strangers, even though the app continuously asks them to talk to strangers on it. We'll promote dancing games where they dance with strangers on there, but we have to be very, very clear that this is a space where children should not be. The other issue that we have with Roblox is the constant pull to attach your credit card to it. Credit cards, again, are personal information that have been hacked. Anecdotally, when I go into a classroom, I have yet to be in a class where a child has said, I've been hacked on Roblox. Every class we've been into, and worldwide, we are in 16 countries, we've had a child who's been hacked. So do not connect your personal information or allow them to use their name or share their names while they are online in Roblox. The other thing we see a lot of information being shared by our children are photos, and parents, we can be the worst at this. We do share our children's photo without their consent from a very young age. Your children often have even their ultrasounds online. So every part of their world has been documented and can be scraped by a bad actor. So I've used the example of Pinterest because we often think Pinterest is a very safe app for older women and men to collect their hobbies and interests. But unfortunately, it is being used by children in a safe and a positive manner where they're collecting hobbies, interests, etc. But what happens is groomers or people with ill intent will start collecting your children's photos and putting secret boards together. And we found that there was a whole network of people doing this and sharing boards between themselves. This really highlights why you should not be sharing photos publicly of your children. Not everybody has the best intentions when they see those photos, and often they're doctored and edited, and using modern AI techniques can be made into something that is not what the initial photo was intended for. So the other conversation we need to have with our children is, why are we sharing photos and who are we sharing them with? There is this pull by media to have this influencer nature. I want to be an influencer, but there is a risk factor to that. And we can only give children a balanced view of the positives and the negatives of thinking that that's a route for the future. The next one I want to talk about is YouTube. YouTube, 100% of our children are on YouTube, as are we. The issue we then have with YouTube is that it's too big to be monitored by the human eye. It is the case that I can upload content and within 90 seconds, my content can go live. So there's no way that YouTube can effectively have their eyes out there. The first thing to do when using YouTube is to ensure your child is navigating it, giving YouTube the knowledge of your age of your child, and making sure that you set up what you feel your child confidently can roam. So YouTube does have two things that you can do with it. One, you can use YouTube to kids, which I will get into in a minute, or you can tell YouTube the age of your child and decide what level of access you want to give them. And that's all in the safety settings in YouTube. You can go over there and then work through the steps. It's very easy to do. You can also go online and find some great videos that will step you through that. Now, also with YouTube for kids, one of the things I want to be aware of, just because it's YouTube for kids does not make it safe. It just means the content has passed the threshold of saying that it's not advertising to your child, that there's no adult content in terms of verbal language. However, there are many ways to get around this, and a lot of the content is made to create your children the need to stay on YouTube for a long time. The motivation of YouTube is your child stays there for a very, very long time. And so they're continuously fed videos on a thread, and maybe content that you as a parent do not desire your child to watch. So let me give you a case and example. If I allow my child to watch YouTube, I may do it, put them in front of something that I enjoy or think is educational. However, if I leave them on YouTube without me there, what happens is they now navigate themselves to more Minecraft content, and then that Minecraft content goes somewhere else. And so I no longer am parenting my child. YouTube has decided what my child can watch. How can you navigate around this? One of the great tips that I do is I use my child's YouTube. I block the content I don't like. So kids' YouTube, I can block often a lot of the things that my children have decided to subscribe to. And then I start subscribing to things I feel they should be watching. And therefore, my parenting has come back into the app, and I can start navigating what I feel that they should be watching when they're on the channel. By subscribing to people and by following and liking things on their channel, I can start manipulating their AI rather than YouTube do that for me. So don't just leave your child on YouTube for kids and think they're in a safe environment because you have. You still need to go in and do all of these settings to secure their cyberspace. So how do we manage their security settings? I think that's integrally the most important question we have to ask ourselves, because a lot of teaching children about cyber safety is critical thinking skills. We need to be online with them. We need to be scrolling with them and answering questions, asking them where they see the risk. But there are things we can do with the actual device itself. For an example, I always say there's two types of people in the world. There's types of people who can have their phone sitting next to them, like I have now, and it may flash a notification. And I either am the type of person who has to read that notification straight away, or I can end up with something like this on my screen, where I have lots of notifications going off at once. Now, one thing we can do for our children is stop putting them through the anxiety of having notifications from YouTube, Roblox, and for the older children who started Snap will continually notify them to come back to the app and use it. You can go into your children's settings and you go to their phones, you go to their devices, go down and have a look at notifications and turn them off. That way the product or the device is not calling them to come back all the time. This will significantly reduce their screen time as well, because there's not that calling card to come back, come back, come back. If you actually watch your child for an hour, and the notifications are on, you'll see that they keep going from one app to the other as they follow the trail as they've been asked to do so. So that's one thing you can do, and that will stop your children from doom scrolling as well. So we get asked a lot about screen time. And when I talk about screen time now, what I want everyone to be aware of is the conversation about how much screen time has become slightly archaic, because our children after COVID use the screens for school. There are screens everywhere. We are a smart city. And so what we're really looking at is our child online scrolling through content without considering what they're using? So one activity I do with my kids is, after they've been scrolling for half an hour, I'm like, what did you just watch? What have you viewed? Tell me. And I can guarantee you, a lot of the time, they do not know what they've watched, because they've been in a trance-like atmosphere. They've just been going from one video to another video, unaware of what they're watching. So in my house, we work with the device in two ways. We have the doom scrolling, the trance time, where they just want to watch Netflix or YouTube. And then we have active screen time, where they can now go there and be educated, learn, do a project, actually do something with a skill. And then you start to understand your cyberspace can be a trance-like space and a learning space. So just to give you an idea of how to set up your children's privacy, this is an example of what we can do in Instagram. This is for ourselves as well. We are often leaking information about our own children that we have to start pulling in or really having an awareness about. So go and set up your privacy so the public cannot see this. I'm always surprised how many Facebook accounts are still set to public. We need to change that. And then go away after this conversation and go through location settings, often with your child, and say, who do you think actually needs our location? Should we be giving it away so readily? Other things you can do, some tips for you are, we do have the book Ready, Get, Set, Connect. I know a lot of your children have received that. Please walk through and talk through each point with them. It's a great one to keep coming back to when our cyber hygiene slips, which it does, much like our children, and pushing them to brush their teeth, pushing them to also be hygienic online is a constant conversation. Get yourself a parent control app so you know what your child's doing. When your children flip from 11 to 13, their cyber behavior will change dramatically. Have you seen that change? If you have not, that means you just haven't seen the change. It has changed. So make sure that you are aware of that. And then a great resource is Common Sense Media. It's online. The school will be aware of it. And it gives you a lot of safety controls, products, ideas to be having with your children consistently. I'm going to move into a new topic. And as I mentioned before, one of the big things we're seeing in Singapore, as the globe, our children are really being affected by scams and phishing. In the world of phishing in our cyberspace, as you know as much as I do, we get so many messages, phone calls about the ministry calling us or our bank calling us, and we're consistently being hit by scams through text messages a lot at the moment, and even WhatsApp I'm now getting a lot. Now our children are obviously not having the same landscape of phishing. Their phishing comes in a very different form. It comes within Roblox, it'll come in Fortnite, and often with the whole pushing of something that's too good to be true. Offering of free Roblox cash is a big one. Now, Roblox only became very big in COVID when they added the feature of Roblox Cash, which is actually my cash and your cash, where they can use exchange cash and upgrade their games. So obviously on the top of that is a whole scam culture where you can get Roblox cash for free, which is not true. No one is given this commodity away for free. There's also a whole thing about becoming famous as well. When you talk to your children online, if you have girls, if they are on Instagram and Snap, what will happen often is that they will get a DM saying, we love your content, we think you're beautiful, we think you can be a model, we believe you can be famous. Why don't you share something? We'll put you on our TikTok channel, or we will help you. And this will obviously pull to a child who wants this to be true, and they will send photos, videos, even your credit card numbers over. It's incredibly important our children can spot a phishing attack, that they understand things. So the other thing to talk to them about is pop-ups. I would advise that every parent put up ad blocker on their device for their children and for yourself. An ad blocker will keep your children a lot safer. A lot of the free games that my children often find online will be consistently pushing them advertising as a pop-up. If we can stop that happening, because those pop-ups are often scams, we put them in a safer space. So please do go ahead and do that. Other advice, now you are going into the new year with your children. The end of the year with your children is still a good time to make sure that their devices are clean and safe. So do they have an antivirus on their computer? I'm sure you'll all say nod and say yes, but my next question is, do they have an antivirus on their phone? Do you have an antivirus on your phone? Now, let's remember that we use our phones now exactly the same way as a computer. So if we don't have an antivirus there, we are in the same situation as we are on the phone. Apple users, the antivirus already comes with your phones, but if you are using an Android, to go to the Google Play Store, there are some great ones from authentic leading cybersecurity companies you can download. The other thing we are incredibly bad at is when your computer says update, that we all say, let's do that later, because we're all so busy. We don't let the installation update happen. Our kids can also end up doing that if their apps are not on automatic update. So we need to ensure we patch our devices. If you have a new device for your child at the moment, there are no viruses on that. But if you slip and don't patch it the next time an update comes through, what you're effectively saying is, I know that you found a virus. I know that there's a problem or a bug out there, but I don't have time to deal with it right now. And you're pushing it down the line, which gives a gap for the virus to come onto your device. So make sure you patch at all times. Now, as I said before, I have yet to be to a class where a child's Minecraft or Roblox account hasn't been hacked. That means our passwords are not always safe when it comes to giving them out to a technology provider or a child. So what we need to do is make sure we set up 2FA accounts, not just our own accounts, but our children's accounts. How 2FA works is, when my password is leaked and it goes into the dark web, it's gone. There's absolutely nothing you can do when a password is out on the dark web. But what you can do is have 2FAs. So when a hacker types in that password, what happens is your phone gets an alert that they're looking for the OTP. You need that OTP to get into your account. So you've actually put 2 lines of defense. Every key account needs 2FA. Google found with all accounts that have 2FA, none of them got hacked. So it's an incredibly successful tool. Please make sure it's on all your bank accounts and all your kids' main accounts, because you do not want to have a child who loses their Minecraft world. It is the end of their world. We're going to move on to another topic now. Where does your child get their news and information from? As I mentioned earlier, a child's world is incredibly different to how we may have grown up. Many of you now have grown up with the internet in your lives completely. I'm slightly older. I didn't have the internet when I grew up. And what we did was have to rely on traditional media. I'd say even to 5 to 10 years ago, we would always go to the Straits Times, or we would go somewhere where we knew was an authentic source to get our news. Now news comes to us in many, many different ways. And that news now is not verified at the source. In fact, some interesting stats. When it comes to 12 to 15-year-olds, as your children get older, they will start to have more navigation of news coming to them. And they're getting their news from their social media accounts and from YouTube, much more than they are from any traditional news channels. So what does that mean? Most of our children's news comes from influencers. It comes from people who have bias or have an intention or motivation to push an agenda or a point of view. You can just see now from the presidential elections, if you look from the news, there is more bias when you're looking at the news of the elections through TikTok than if you're looking from it from an authentic source. You can see that somebody may have some intention when they like one candidate more than the other. It's something that as parents we can read, we can see the intention of the person who's posted. However, children don't often get that nuance, and we're like, well, this person said this, therefore it's true. And that's when virality or misinformation or disinformation starts to creep in. So let me explain these two concepts, because I think it's never really explained very well. Disinformation is when somebody comes up with a piece of news that is clearly wrong or is a fake piece of news. So we saw this a lot around COVID, where we heard lots of fake news coming out without any verification. So, you know, we would have things like your arm would go magnetic if you had a vaccination afterwards. In some countries, a vaccination was thought to be completely negative or ill intent. So a lot of disinformation came about. And then misinformation was when we heard the news through our WhatsApp or our social media channels, and we repeated it as if it was true without ill intent. We just believed we had got a piece of news source and repeated it. And you can see that misinformation has become incredibly big. And it's something we need our children to be aware of, that there are issues out there when we are seeing news from these channels, and that they need to really think it through. Let's consider the fact that now AI has allowed us all to have photos, photography, videos that are also fake, but look incredibly real. Some of them I cannot tell if they're real or not real. So our children are entering in a world where what they view, visually see, and hear may be fake and could be. So they need to be taught critical thinking skills when they see information on content online. Why do you think it's true? What's the motivation for this story? And how can you verify it? What is the source? And are these influencers being paid, or do they have some political motivation behind their viewpoint? We need to start getting our children to think wider. Otherwise, they start to get into an echo chamber and only believe one point of view. One of the channels we see this happening a lot in is Discord. Discord is a place that really, again, became really big with the pandemic. So if your child is playing Fortnite with their friends, they can't actually hear their friends. So they often go over to Discord, which they can set up a server room, which to me and you is a chat room. And they can go in that room and chat to each other while they're playing. And now this has got so much bigger. A lot of official channels now use Discord as well. A lot of podcasts will keep their community on there. There'll be cooking channels. There's so many server rooms with so many interests. The issue is not when your child is in a server room with their friends, it's when they go to public server rooms. And there may be information, photography, links that are being shared with them. It's like having somebody in your ear consistently. I always think I liken this to when I get addicted to a Netflix series, I then start to get to a point where I want to dress like them. I'll go on YouTube, the back videos, how was it made? I get really into the whole point of it. So you have to remember, when your children are on Discord listening to strangers, they often will have someone's voice in their head for 7 hours with different values or views to that of your family or your own, feeding them information that may not be true or not something that you agree with. And they have the ear or the mind share of a stranger. So it's incredibly important when your children are on products like Discord that you know who they're talking to, that they're not in their bedrooms having a one-on-one conversation without your interaction or you being aware of it. We're going to move on from fake news to a cyberbullying. As I said before, the rise in cyberbullying has become significant. Nearly 60% of teens have experienced online harm or harassment. When I started doing this talk over 2 years ago, this was 50%. So it is going in an upward fashion rather than a downward fashion. The schools here have the same problem as globally. I always say, if you have not heard of a cyberbullying case, it's not because it's not happening, you've just not heard of it. Unfortunately, it's become a very toxic atmosphere, and our children's cyberspaces often have cyberbullying with others or to themselves if they're not locked up in terms of not being able to talk to strangers or if they are in a cyberspace where they are locked up, as it were, and they aren't talking to strangers and they're not in rooms with other people, then they are in a safer space. But 80% of children in classrooms in Singapore right now do talk to strangers. So that's something to be aware of. 2 in 5 teens have experienced online name calling and rumors online, and 23% of teens have sent teenagers aggressive messages online. Where do we see this happening? One of the big apps that has become known as a cyberbullying app here in Singapore, as again in the globe, is Telenim. There are others like this that are out there, and the new one that has just come out is called Slay. These apps are highly dangerous for our children. They were created as anonymous apps with positive intentions. They were either asking questions anonymously or wanting to know in a work environment, customers, employees, would you like to report something anonymously? But they've been taken up by the school communities, the students, as being abusive or mean to each other without identifying who they are. The reason cyberbullying is so large, is so big and so much of a threat is because things are being done anonymously. People are hiding behind the screens. So the same rules that we have in the real world don't apply when children are online or adults online. There's a real belief that if we're online, we're allowed to vocalize our opinion, we're allowed to say what we want to say, without thinking about the emotional harm that we would cause somebody. While we walk around the streets, maybe not agreeing with everybody or our neighbours, we are not abusive or mean or reporting anonymously about them. So we need to cultivate that same environment online. One of the conversations that we tend to have with the children is how can they be upstanders online? What do I mean by an upstander? So me and you as parents, as teachers, we are not allowed to go into our children's online spaces. That's something, as I've made very clear, is a very uncomfortable position for our children to be in, to have adults in their online spaces. So we need to get our children to understand that if they see cyberbullying amongst each other, that they have to act in a community. So say your child is part of the gaming community and they see a lot of abuse going around, what they need to do is take a screenshot and then use the functions and the settings that are in the games to report and block the bullies. Every game or every social media channel does have a report and block function. I will be the first to admit it's not always the easiest to find, but we need to make sure our children know where that feature is so that they can go and be supportive or to block someone who's been mean to them. We need them to realize, like the real world, they are not supposed to try and sort out cyberbullying by themselves. They must report it to a trusted adult and speak to others and not feel so isolated. Or children who are being cyberbullied, often you'll see that they're agitated, will go to their room, will be a bit worried around their device. We need to pick up on these cues and then be supportive when we talk to our children. Something I keep touching upon but haven't delved into is groomers. We call them groomers to children to get them to understand there's people online who have bad motivation or intent. They want to make you feel uncomfortable. In Singapore, they may not physically want to meet you, but they will want you to send videos or photos. And parents, we know they doctor these videos and photos and then sell them on. So we need our children to identify red flags when people are talking to them online with ill intent, especially as our children get older and do want to game with others or do communicate with others. They need to know if they're in a safe space or if they're in a space which could be bad for them. So we talk about red flags, and this is something I do to my children as well. I point out red flags. If people online are asking you to send photos or videos, that is a red flag. If somebody is asking you about your family or asking lots of questions, that again is a red flag. If you're gaming with someone, you're gaming with them. They don't need to know about your life. Anybody who wants to cultivate a secret online is something to be extremely worried about. And if someone's what we call love bombing, and you've never met them in the real world. For younger kids, I'm always very, very clear to them, no one can love you if they've not met you in the real world. If they are strangers and they're telling you they love you, it's not true. you need to be very aware that you can block them and get them out your cyberspace. Give your children permission to block people online. We have trained our children to be polite to adults, which we should, but what it means is that if they feel there's a balance of power, they may stay in a conversation or not block that person, but we need to give them permission to take control online. So before we talk about any questions that you may have, I just want to go through the key points of the conversation that we've had and you should be aware of. One, set up your security on your children's device. Your children's device is like their bedrooms. If you leave the door open and you allow anybody in, they are not in a safe space. They are in a fundamentally risky atmosphere. You need to put a lock on the key on all those apps you identified at the beginning. If you then get to that app and realize there is no lock and key app, delete the app. It's not a place for a child to be. And so that can keep your child's cyberspace really, really secure. Ensure your children navigate their online space with positive intentions. That means also yourself controlling their AI and channels such as Snap, TikTok, YouTube. Go over and subscribe to people you resonate with, who are part of your value system. Make sure that you've locked up any of their private information that you feel that could be at risk in the future. One example I give older teenagers, and I can give to yourself as well, is when you're giving information out online, you often think, why does this matter? But if you're a 16-year-old child and you've put out your date of birth, where you were born, your school name, your first pet's name, etc., a bad actor will collate that information and at the age of 18 can put up a whole identity which is the same as yours and open bank accounts, apply for universities. They can literally steal your identity. So the younger your children are, the more we have time to start locking up that personal information so it cannot be used with ill intent later in life. Good communication by pulling down the rate of unethical communication online, we will stop these rates of cyberbullying. Children are not meaner today, they just haven't been taught the etiquette online has to be the same as the etiquette offline. We need to start having that conversation, and they need to, as another point, verify all news that comes to them. One thing I would recommend if you come off this call and want to activate something is to have a family cyber pledge where you all conform to some rules. So in terms of scrolling, doom scrolling, we'll only do that half an hour a day. We won't have phones at the dinner table. We will not have phones in our bedrooms where you could be at more risk because I cannot see what you're doing. These rules will keep you safe and will keep your children safe. Be aware your children can be affected by habitual behaviors such as doom scrolling, oversharing, and trolling and cyberbullying. We need to discourage these behaviors and get our children back into an incredibly safe space. Now, there are incidences where our children end up in very vulnerable situations. They may have sent a photo, a video, they may be cyberbullied. You may have found that this has happened to you as well. I just wanted everyone to be aware. Singapore has developed in the last year, SG, her empowerment. This is an amazing thing that you can, not only as a female, but also as a male, turn to if you are being harassed online or a video, photo, your information has been leaked. They will work with the technology companies and with the police to make sure that it comes down. Remember, if your child gets into a sensitive situation online, it's not because they're bad, it's not because they're mean. Even when they're on the screen for a long time, there's many things coming at them. We need to make sure we support them as they navigate a really complicated AI age. Thank you very much. I will now turn to question time. And I know I've given you so much information, so hopefully we have a few questions that I can support you moving forward.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to jump in here. I'm Michelle. I'm Nina's co-founder at Cyberlite. Thank you again for joining us this Saturday morning. I'll give Nina a few minutes to take a sip of water. I know she's given you a lot of information. So We'll take the next 10 minutes to answer any questions that you might have. So please put it in the chat box below. While we give people some time to think about their questions and type it into the chat. I just wanted to jump in here and open up a conversation and a dialogue with Nina, to say that, I know we all live in Singapore, and there's this great infrastructure physically around us with our police force, our army, our government. Everyone takes very good care of us. And this is one of the safest countries in the world to live in, right? So I know when we talk about cyber safety, sometimes parents have a difficult time to understand, that there is a lot of danger out there. Because we live in such a safe environment, we don't often think about our security or our safety that much. So I just wanted to remind everyone, Nina and I, we travel around Southeast Asia, around Asia, particularly to developing countries like India, like Nepal and Maldives and Indonesia, where the kids and the people there are all on the same apps that our kids are on. They're all on TikTok, they're all on Instagram, they all play Roblox. So it's a good reminder that all your children here in Singapore are interacting with people from around the world. This is why we're so concerned with cyber safety, is you're opening up the doors to all the different strangers from all walks of life, and we don't know other people's motivations, whether it's good or bad. So to follow up on that note, I know one of the main questions that a lot of parents will ask us is, how do I know if a new game that my kid wants to download is safe or not? There's a great saying that Nina comes up with, and she says it a lot, which is families who scroll together stay together. So Nina, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on how that line actually helps parents protect their kids online?
So glad you started saying my lines, Michelle, because I think it's
I started quoting you.
Quote me, I'm nearly famous. So yeah, exactly that. I know that I also can be sometimes very lax when it comes to the family that scrolls together, stays together, because as parents, when our children are on a device, we tend to use that time to get away and do something for ourselves. We don't want to be watching them watching something else. So that's the whole point of putting them there. But if we don't see what's happening, we do tend to see that they are getting into awkward or risky situations without being aware of it. There is a sense of trust value in the product that they've been given. They trust it because we gave it to them. We've allowed them to get onto these platforms, and then adults, they think that we've done the due diligence. They believe that it's been done. So what you can do as parents is, if your child does ask for a new product or a new game, go over to Common Sense Media. It will rate it as an adult and it will rate it as a child. And then the rating's never the same, but then you can make a collective decision whether it's a safe space for your child. Also play with it and with them. And you'll see how children are so excited as a parent when you take some sort of interest in their online space, because that is their real world, and they want to show you who they're watching or what they like. And there's so many times I've sat there with my son, because he's obsessed with Minecraft and he tries to find out more about Minecraft, and then I watch what he's watching and I'm like, this is not good, this is not great at all. So then I know I can block it, and I can only see that if I go on there and I look at what he's doing. And if you're not catching it, you're probably not looking for it, because this is pushed to our children all the time.
Yeah, actually, on that train of thought, the other thing that we always get asked is, I'm not going to sit there in front of YouTube with my kids for hours. I'm not going to watch them watch TikTok for hours. So how can I control my child's algorithm? I know, Nina, you subscribe to certain channels and you have different tactics. So do you want to share a little bit more on that?
Yeah. Actually, if you have older children, I find TikTok is much easier to control than YouTube. YouTube has very little control for parents, but with TikTok, you can clear the algorithm completely and start again. And you can also watch everything they're watching if you choose to do so on your parent app. You can't do that with YouTube. You are very much at YouTube's realm to let what they're allowed your child to watch. So I block a lot of content on my kids' YouTube. I actually once every 2 weeks will go over there and block it. I actually didn't let my children onto YouTube until they were at least 7 years old, because it's very hard for them to communicate to me what they are watching. So go use the features, and the more we ask these technology companies for features, the more they are actually coming out.
Absolutely. I noticed, thank you, Raji, for your message. I noticed that no one's have any questions so far, so I'll keep going, and there's still 5 more minutes to put in your questions in the chat box. Nina, I think you just alluded to something there, which is parental controls, right? A lot of parents ask us, what are the apps? How can I monitor my child? What can I do? You just mentioned TikTok. If your child is on TikTok, I know for primary school is quite young, but if they are, TikTok has a family pairing feature where you can actually watch what they're watching on your phone. So that's one thing to control. But Nina, what are some of the other apps that you recommend, like Google or Custodio?
Yeah, and I actually I see another question that actually adds to this as well: how to control the time of using the screen time. So you can use a parent control app. Now, if you have an Apple device, they do have a parent control. I wouldn't say it was the best, where you can lock their screen time, set it up, and you can also, they have to ask you permission before downloading any apps. If you have an Android, they have a much better parent control. It's Family Link. And that allows you to really see where your children are at all times, know what they're viewing, block the amount of screen time they're allowed to use, and the apps that they're using. You can also buy parent control apps. I know StarHub has done a relationship with Custodio, which is a really good one to use as well. So you can search for Singtel, sorry, Singtel. I'm sorry, I forgot the wrong place there. So do have a look at what parent control apps are available to you on your current plan as well, or have a look at Family Link, or the Apple Store also has the parent control apps.
Yeah, awesome. We have another question here: how to block YouTube while school, as well as also links to YouTube. Blocking YouTube will not allow the child to access the videos that you might need for schoolwork or for educational purposes.
Yeah, so when it comes to YouTube in the school, the school can have filters on there, so they filter out particular words that the children cannot search while they're on the YouTube at school. So we have to look at the school filter as well. Make sure that YouTube itself knows the age of the child while you're on the YouTube. Do not have your YouTube up there. Make sure the child's YouTube settings are set to use that, and that will put them in a safe space. You don't need to block YouTube in a situation when the school is using it. The school should send out the link the child needs to use, and then they don't navigate away from the link they're using with the child. I think rarely will a child be allowed to go onto a link and then go off into a different world while they're at school. So the teacher will have already sourced the link and kept the child on that. Oh, thank you for the comment there, Melanie. Any other questions?
Yeah, we just had one coming up. I'm juggling between accessibility and security, for instance. How do you control shared devices such as the TV? Having a pin on the TV makes the child feel that we're disconnected from them, and they might end up, circumnavigating your security settings or putting in their own PIN code on their own accounts, right?
Yeah, I mean, accessibility and security is the number one bane of every parent. Like, if we have to go and do the OTP, or if we have to go and do the PIN, it is an added layer. And I myself, it drives me nuts sometimes. However, like any other parenting, unfortunately, we do have to disconnect our children sometimes. We do need to put that extra effort in. And if we're not doing that, we're not putting our children in a safe cyberspace. We've just left the door open. The same as if our children were going to come home by themselves and we just say, we'll leave the front door wide open. You are just inviting risk. So that extra layer is still painful. As technology develops, we hope it becomes less painful. A lot of the solutions lie with the technology companies to ensure our children are less vulnerable online. But until that is done, we still have to take that little bit of burn ourselves, I think.
Yeah, and I think, on that note of feeling disconnected, with a child as young as yours in primary school, I think it's very important to have that open conversation of the decisions that you're making today is to help your safety, to help your child's, safety and protection, and to make it clear that you're the adult in the room with the responsibility to protect your children. And so putting in a PIN code for, adult content or for inappropriate content is actually looking out for them, and it's not meant to disconnect you from your child. We have 1 minute left, so I know we're running out of time. If anyone has any more questions or you feel a bit shy to ask us in a public forum here today, please feel free to reach out to us at cyberlitebooks.com. There's a contact page there, and we can answer your questions, any queries, any follow-ups that you might have. So feel free to contact us. Nina, if you go to the next page, is our website link? Yeah. So our website is on the screen for you now.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.